Ready? And 3, 2, 1.
Punctuation is cool, but I think it's time for a new one. It is a statement that many have said, but not many have been able to make theirs commonplace. We've got a decent set of punctuation right now, but I've been thinking our full stop punctuation has only got three major types. The period, the exclamation point, and the question mark. These three do get the job done, but there's gotta be something that isn't well represented with one of these three marks, so let's review a few proposed punctuations and see if they'd make any sense in today's context. The interrobang. The interrobang is used in place of a question mark and an exclamation point right after each other. This is the punctuation equivalent of like Oreo cereal. The two things were fine when they weren't combined, but now it just seems like too much. I feel like it also doesn't represent the feeling of what the interrobang is supposed to be. Excuse me versus excuse me, it's just too much and also not enough at the same time. Next, the irony marks, used to mark when a statement is said ironically. Irony is when the surface level meaning does not reflect the deeper meaning. It was hard for me to pin down a proper definition for this, like when I thought about it, I was like, what is irony exactly? And so I went to the Wikipedia page and guess what, there was a whole section about the problem of defining it, so that's wonderful. There are a few variations of what the irony mark looks like, but this one's my favorite. I can understand why people would want a mark to make it clear when they're saying something ironically, especially in today's age, but I feel like there's also a group of people who would think it's corny, because I mean, it would kind of be corny to call out saying something ironically in the same sentence you said it, and then people would also just start using the irony mark ironically, and I just feel like the irony mark is a little too confusing. Imagine trying to teach this punctuation in school, too. It just doesn't make sense to me, but maybe you've got some insight I don't know. So, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, next, the Snark Marks. There have been a few interesting instances of marks meant to state snark. It's an interesting concept, but I feel like you can get all the snark you want if you're smart, or you can use italics. However, there's also the story of the Snark Mark guy who tried to sell a snark punctuation mark to people for $2, which is extremely stupid, and that's what everyone else thought too. Also, that's one way to get a punctuation mark to not work. If you're expecting people to use it on common writing, you want to make it easily accessible for everyone and also not make people pay for it. Again though, if you can't be snarky without special punctuation, it's a skill issue on your part. Next, the Hervé Bazin Marks. I'm not going to keep pronouncing them like that, sorry. In advance, I guess. Okay, so we've got a few different marks for this one, all by this one French dude who was known for writing stories about dysfunctional families and teenage rebellion, I guess. And aside from this man's interesting life, he proposed 6 new punctuation marks in a book he wrote, and from what I understand it wasn't super serious, so none of these punctuation marks were taken that seriously either. He had his own irony mark, which we mentioned above, but he also had a conviction mark and a doubt mark, used when you're making a statement with conviction or doubt. Doubt marks don't make much sense to me, because you can convey doubt in the same way with ellipses, which feel a lot more subtle but effective. Also, when would you ever use a doubt mark outside of storytelling? Can you imagine trying to use a doubt mark in like a news article or like anywhere that isn't a fictional story? It'd be like the ultimate shade-throwing punctuation mark, which sounds hilarious, don't get me wrong, but it does go to show how this mark was intended to be used. For fictional stories. This is fine, of course, but if you're expecting everybody to use it, you've got to be able to naturally apply it in more places. The conviction mark, I share a similar sentiment. It works, but I feel like using a period can work just as well, maybe even better now because the internet uses punctuation so loosely that when a period is used, it's almost seen as serious. I just think it would be redundant to have a conviction mark. He also had the authority mark, which is used to mark when a statement is said by someone with authority in a situation. I just feel like this one's a little too specific, and it's a little silly to me, but that's just my opinion. There was also the love mark, which is meant to mark lovey-dovey messages. You could argue it's used in the modern day with like emoticons with that less than 3 symbol, so maybe this one was just ahead of its time in a different way than we expected. I just think the way it's depicted here is silly. But my favorite punctuation mark of Bazin's is definitely the exclamation point. The exclamation point is used when you have a statement made with positive vibes and a happy connotation. I think this one could work well for deeply personal messages and could help better convey that happy feeling. I could imagine using it in text too for like really genuine moments. I could also see it being used ironically or like for very evil things, like I had a great time today versus I hope you trip on the cement. If this became a regular punctuation mark, I think we should shun companies from using it because I feel like if it's a deeply personal punctuation mark, it would be a little strange if corporations trying to sell you something with it, but that's just my personal opinion. I could see it being useful to sign off emails as well. I don't know, there's just a lot of uses for this one that I could see. So I'm a fan of this one. If there was something that was equivalent to it, the closest I can think is the tilde. I know this technically isn't a punctuation mark, but it has become something that is used to end certain sentences. But the vibes it gives, I guess, are more akin to the love mark. The best way to describe it is like not light-hearted or heavy-hearted, it's like a medium-hearted symbol, if that makes any sense. It's a little silly, but it's like an ellipses, so the vibes dwell on a little longer when you use it, but I'd argue it's already used as in many places as it will ever be. The tilde is chill in my book though. So with the ones I've liked so far, I've got the exclamation point and the tilde. Since the tilde is already used as much as it probably will be, we're left with the exclamation point. This mark is interesting though because it could work, but I just feel like it won't, you know? Emojis and emoticons really took the chance of any new punctuation becoming commonplace, but especially the exclamation point. And another struggle with introducing a new punctuation mark in modern day is that we've already gotten around a lot of the restrictions that our punctuation has placed on us with different methods, and so new punctuation might not be as needed as I originally thought. But if I were to make my own punctuation, it would be... I don't know. Oh, I got it. Okay. If I were to make my own punctuation mark, it would be the exclamation mark. This is what you use at the end of a sentence when you really want someone to read the next sentence. For example, the world ended that day, exclamation mark. It was because of the accident. It's like a clickable link in readable form. You're basically begging someone to read the next sentence. It could be good in articles after like the third sentence to keep people intrigued. You could use it to just be rude to people. It would be hilarious in my opinion. So consider using the exclamation mark. Your life will become more awesomer. But that's my opinion. That's all I've got on this topic for now. What punctuation should we use though? Because I feel like there's a few good ones, but I don't know. None of these feel like they match up to the strength and prowess of the question mark and exclamation point. But maybe there's a few good ones I haven't seen here. So if you happen to know any, let me know in the comments or something. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'm off to bed now. See ya.